After achieving remarkable success and relishing in his newfound NET lifestyle, Kinji mockingly observes fellow humans struggling to work on a rainy day. To his astonishment, a sudden black hole materializes beneath him, whisking him away to a completely different realm known as Emiria. Sometime later, Kinji finds himself employed by the Rizaha Mining Corporation, a company specializing in dungeon exploration. He attentively listens to Belza Shubaha as she urges the workers to intensify their sacrifices, even to the extent of forsaking sleep and meals, all in the pursuit of outperforming their competitors. In Emiria, a world inhabited by demi-humans, humans once sought fame and glory by raiding dungeons in ancient times. However, as modernization took hold, a valuable ore known as demonite, discovered within dungeons, emerged as a vital energy source. Consequently, governments and corporations secured licenses to oversee and manage these dungeons. While laboring in the dungeon, the goblin boss seeks to discuss last month's results with Kinji, who displays no interest. However, the goblin's frustration escalates as he reveals that Kinji only achieved 15% of his quota, leading to a collective downgrade in the team's evaluation. Beyond the dungeon walls, Kinji vents his frustration by venturing to a sign and taking out his aggravation, vexed by the grueling 16-hour workdays, crowded dormitories devoid of privacy, and perpetual exhaustion. As he examines his remaining funds, a gold coin slips from his grasp, rolling behind a fence and catching Kinji's attention. After their grueling work shift concludes, Kinji extends an invitation to Wannabe, a fellow coworker from their team. As they dine at an upscale restaurant, Wannabe expresses bewilderment about Kinji's financial capability, having heard rumors that he possessed 10 million gold coins. Kinji corrects him, revealing it to be 20 million. Kinji elaborates on his financial journey, explaining that he initially lacked funds and decided to sell his magic tablet. However, accusations of fraud emerged when the tablet's battery failed, resulting in an attack that led Kinji to the dungeon company to settle his debt. Hearing this, Wannabe contemplates leaving, but Kinji persuades him, highlighting that this could represent a pivotal opportunity for Wannabe to transform his lackluster life. The following day, Kinji and Wannabe visit the goblin and Kinji inquires about the possibility of embarking on a prospecting tour, which involves a group of workers venturing deeper into the dungeon in search of demonite. The deeper they go, the more perilous the encounters with monsters become. The goblin's face lights up with excitement upon hearing Kinji's request, and he readily agrees. Kinji guides Wannabe behind the fence, unveiling a concealed portal leading to the third floor of the dungeon. As they descend, they stumble upon a substantial reservoir of demonite and begin mining it. Wannabe expresses his gratitude to Kinji for the invitation, but Kinji clarifies that it's primarily because Wannabe serves as a convenience for him, given Wannabe's lack of friends. Kinji goes on to explain that individuals lacking strength often gather around influential connections and tend to engage in incessant complaints, contributing to stagnation. Once they have collected a sufficient amount of demonite, the duo decides to depart. However, their plans are abruptly disrupted when a massive dragon materializes and aggressively targets them, seemingly intent on devouring them. Kinji and Wannabe hastily seek cover and contemplate their next move. Kinji devises a daring plan and instructs Wannabe to act as bait, a proposal Wannabe vehemently resists. Nonetheless, Kinji pushes him forward, and the dragon seizes Wannabe, preparing to make a meal out of him. From a higher vantage point, Kinji raises his voice to address the dragon, expressing his disdain for being looked down upon and drawing a parallel with the big guy dragon. The dragon introduces itself as Rim. Kinji proceeds to propose a unique arrangement. In exchange for safeguarding them while they gather demonite, Kinji will offer Rim a delectable alternative to human cuisine. Rim is intrigued and begins to chuckle, finding Kinji exceptionally interesting. Then, to Kinji's surprise, Rim transforms into a young girl and agrees to Kinji's proposition. At a later time, the goblin boss commends Kinji for his outstanding contributions, noting the significant expansion of their team. Despite the accolades, Kinji feels a growing sense of frustration because, instead of accumulating wealth, he's actually incurring losses due to Rim's insatiable appetite, depleting his finances. During a mining expedition, Kinji and Wannabe stumble upon an area filled with magical items, and Rim reveals it to be their restroom, containing items she couldn't digest. In an impulsive act of annoyance, Kinji hurls one of the items, inadvertently striking Wannabe. Rim demands more sustenance, leading Wannabe to abruptly rise and tear off his own tail. This strange behavior prompts Rim to suspect that Wannabe may be under the influence of a peculiar magical power. Kinji soon realizes that the magical staff possesses hypnotic capabilities and employs it to manipulate his coworkers, compelling them to work for him. After a month, Kinji's coworkers find themselves utterly drained, though they remain unaware of the reason behind their exhaustion. Kinji notices that the staff's effectiveness is waning, prompting Wannabe to express a desire to halt their actions and offer an apology, foreseeing potential complications. Kinji, however, emphasizes the need to continue generating income and underscores the risk of others discovering their secret passage if they stop. At that very moment, the staff fractures and shatters, undoing the brainwashing effect. As the veil of control lifts, everyone hears Kinji boastfully declaring his intention to exploit these losers to elevate himself further, instructing them to persist as their master. Enraged by his arrogance, his coworkers unite to confront and physically assault him. As Kinji lies on the ground, Rim mentions her hunger, and Kinji urges her to consider his predicament. In response, Rim reminds him of his earlier statement that if he doesn't provide her with food, she has the right to consume him, proceeding to bite him. Kinji's colleagues make no effort to conceal their animosity towards him, despite his pivotal role in their team's remarkable success over the past 2 months. Kinji is disheartened by the open display of their disdain, given that he was instrumental in their achievements. Overhearing a conversation between a concerned Wannabe and the Goblin boss, Kinji learns that his accomplishments have not gone unnoticed by the upper echelons of the Rizaha Mining Corporation. The Goblin boss acknowledges this, and soon after, Kinji receives a letter informing him and Wannabe of their transfer to Exploration Division Group 8. The Rizaha Mining Corporation, headquartered in Torstone with a capital of 1.3 billion gold and a workforce of over 30,000 employees, operates primarily in the industrialization of demonite. The corporation's extensive operations encompass logistics, sales, research and development, as well as the exploration and mining of demonite-rich dungeons. The Exploration Division, which is central to the corporation's revenue, is a highly specialized entity divided into various groups. For instance, Group 3 specializes in hunting large monsters to protect and expand mining areas, while Group 8 is tasked with supporting frontline fighters by dealing with smaller mob monsters, replenishing treasure chests with essential items, and handling various other tasks. During their inaugural mission as members of Group 8, Kinji and Wannabe grapple with a horde of troublesome slime monsters. Wannabe succumbs to a wave of despondency, fearing that he will toil until his life's end, with no one to remember his existence. Kinji, on the other hand, resolutely declares that he is determined to meet his demise only after experiencing life to its absolute fullest. In the midst of their ordeal, Wannabe unwittingly triggers a chest, which turns out to be a mimic that ensnares him with its tentacles. As Kinji searches for items to aid in Wannabe's predicament, his impatience gets the better of him, leading him to throw everything at the mimic. After their shift, Kinji faces a stern rebuke as he had been assigned a relatively safe route. However, since Wannabe won't be able to work for a while due to his injuries, Kinji is compelled to cover for him. Additionally, the cost of the items he carelessly tossed into the mimic will be deducted from his payment. Though annoyed, Kinji finds himself with no recourse. Upon their return home, Kinji procures discarded restaurant leftovers and offers them to Rim. She isn't particularly thrilled but proceeds to consume all of it. Then, Rim detects a tantalizing scent and takes note of a marbled piece of meat Kinji has acquired at an incredibly low cost, as it is considered undesirable by the residents of this world. Despite Kinji's efforts to prevent her, Rim eagerly devours the delectable treat. The following day, Kinji arrives at work with the task of restocking some chests. During his duties, he encounters an elite adventurer from Group 3 who is being pursued by relentless monsters and implores Kinji to buy him some time for escape. As dungeon ants emerge on the scene, both Kinji and the adventurer make a frantic dash to evade their pursuers. Spotting a nearby river, Kinji makes a snap decision and leaps into it with the adventurer, seeking refuge. Upon returning to the storehouse, Kinji attempts to contact the management to report the situation. Unfortunately, the storehouse manager remains skeptical, as dungeon ants are typically formidable monsters found on lower floors and are not expected to venture into higher levels. Kinji receives the disheartening news that they cannot allocate manpower without concrete verification of the threat. As the relentless ants launch an assault on the storehouse, Kinji desperately searches for any available resources, ultimately spotting a small box that might prove useful. The relentless ants proceed to strip the storehouse of its contents. In a desperate attempt to escape their dire predicament, Kinji makes use of the transformation drug found in the small box, using an ant's leg to turn himself and his companions into ants. Despite their transformation, their manager has sealed off the exit to the upper floors, leaving Kinji and the others stranded. Aware that their ant guise will only last temporarily, they grapple with the looming sense of doom. During their plight, Kinji notices an abandoned ant struggling to move forward and has an epiphany. He can hear the communication among the ants. Approaching the abandoned ant, Kinji inquires about its well-being, questioning whether it's normal to be forsaken, and introduces himself as a wandering ant offering advice and counsel to worker ants far and wide. Kinji concocts a story about a selfish queen that drove his former colony to collapse, prompting his journey to help other ants. Upon conversing with the overworked ant, Kinji delves deeper, asking how many days it rests, only to be astounded by the response of none. He ventures further by suggesting that perhaps the ant receives substantial rewards for its relentless labor, but is once again taken aback to learn that there are no rewards. Kinji proceeds to encourage the ant, emphasizing that it must feel exploited and should demand its rights, reminding it that it must have dreams and aspirations. Subsequently, Kinji engages with other ants to identify those similarly overworked and disheartened by their work schedules. As Kinji gathers a sizable group of ants, he engages in conversations with them, urging them to voice their resistance against the queen who has subjected them to harsh working conditions. With little effort, Kinji earns the trust and unwavering support of the ants. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the colony, the Queen receives a report indicating that Operation Surface Invasion has only achieved 30% progress, which she deems disappointingly slow. She attributes this setback to the absence of the glutton demon and is determined to intensify the workers' efforts, pushing them to work harder and faster to expand their dominion. Unbeknownst to her, a rebellion is brewing. The Queen soon finds herself encircled by protesting ants and Kinji, whose transformation drug has worn off. Kinji openly criticizes the Queen, deeming her even worse than he had initially believed. Puzzled by the presence of a human among her subjects, the Queen is informed by Kinji that they are comrades united by a common cause. Although Kinji can no longer comprehend the ants' speech, he is confident that they will no longer follow the Queen due to her lack of leadership talent. Defiant, the Queen asserts that she values raw power over talent and undergoes a transformation, growing larger and more formidable. In a desperate attempt to strike Kinji, she attacks, but Rim suddenly intervenes, shielding Kinji from the Queen's assault. Recognizing Rim, the Queen becomes visibly frightened. Rim then begins to pursue the ants with the intent to consume them, but Kinji offers her a piece of meat in exchange for sparing them. Moved by Kinji's compassion and quick thinking, the ants and the Queen are charmed by his actions and bow in gratitude. Kinji emerges as an unexpected hero, having saved them from a bleak fate. Wannabe makes a full recovery and joins Kinji, who appears to be in high spirits. Curious, Wannabe inquires about their journey deeper into the dungeon, but Kinji continues to emphasize how the company has only provided them with a simple piece of paper. In a moment of reflection, Kinji starts to believe that the company requires a leader of his caliber. He reveals that he has taken the initiative to establish an organization aimed at taking control of the Rizaha Mining Corporation. Kinji extends an invitation to Wannabe to join the Dungeon Black Company, emphasizing that he now has the support of the ants and Rim in her formidable dragon form. But Kinji and Wannabe are sent to an island so that they can be tested. The whole purpose of the training is to make those who are a little hesitant to work accept everything willingly so that the company benefits. Gradually, Kinji and Wannabe undergo a transformation and come to accept their fate. However, later on, we come to know that they were being brainwashed using black magic. When everyone changes their mindset, they are sent back to the dungeon. While in the dungeon, Kinji returns to his normal state from the brainwashed state, and Wannabe also regains consciousness. It is later revealed that it was Kinji's idea to have them both consume herbs so that they wouldn't be brainwashed. They had mixed the same herbs into the magician's food, who had destroyed the entire brainwashed compound after Kinji and Wannabe left. In the dungeon, we are introduced to Shia, who is the second hero and also in charge. However, she possesses a great deal of power that she struggles to control, and as a result, she inadvertently injures Wannabe. Shia believes that Kinji is not taking the company seriously, so she brings him to the dungeon to show him how powerful she is and to help him improve his abilities. A formidable monster appears in the dungeon, and Kinji retreats, unable to confront it. Shia easily defeats the monster, thinking it's the enemy, and then turns her attention to Kinji, mistaking him for the monster. Kinji tries to protect himself, but Shia attacks him. Unable to match Shia's power, Kinji calls for help, summoning Rim. Shia attacks Rim but cannot inflict any damage. Rim transforms once more and easily defeats Shia. Wannabe then arrives in the scene, and Kinji, Rim, and Queen discuss their next steps. While Shia watches, Kinji begins to challenge the company's policies. To silence him, Wannabe takes a picture of Shia with the monster, intending to use it as blackmail against her to tarnish her reputation. Kinji uses this photo to force Shia to join his company, and she is reluctantly compelled to work for them. One evening, Kinji is once again attacked by a loan shark and is asked to repay the gold he had borrowed with interest. He is given a final deadline, or else he will be harmed. Inside the dungeon, Shia teaches Kinji, Wannabe, and others how to fight against monsters. Kinji initially feels demotivated but becomes motivated when they collect loot from the monsters. An idea strikes Kinji. He wants to create a monster farm inside the dungeon. This way, they can harvest loot without engaging in battles, and the monsters can regenerate body parts over time. Kinji believes this idea can be highly profitable and help him repay his debt to the loan shark. Shia disagrees with this approach, as it goes against the method she had recommended. Suddenly, an earthquake strikes, causing the dungeon's ground to crumble, and Shia is about to fall down. Kinji tries to save Shia when she falls, but he also falls. The company's owner, Belzeb, explains how they can attack during the death march using a strong human's aura to attract the Majin and eliminate them. That's why she sent Shia to the first place, so she could be presented like a meal and calm the Majin down. After this, Kinji and Shia go deeper into the dungeon, and Shia praises Kinji for his assistance. Suddenly, a Majin appears and attacks Shia. Shia realizes the extent of its power but is severely injured in the process. Shia has an item that can teleport one person in emergencies, but it's not designed for two people. She tries to use it on Kinji, but he refuses. Instead, she uses the item on Kinji and sends him towards the Majin. The Majin teleports above the ground, and Shia doesn't understand why Kinji did this. Kinji feels no regret for his actions and explains that he was solely focused on helping Shia, so he should arrive shortly. Kinji sets up a trap with the ant monsters and uses Shia as bait to attract the Majin into the trap. He gradually weakens the Majin. Kinji also tells Shia how the company is using her and that the Majin was sent to kill her. Shia realizes she is being manipulated and decides to fight for herself this time. However, she isn't strong enough to defeat the Majin, and it starts attacking Kinji. Just as the Majin is about to devour Kinji, Rim appears in her dragon form, separates the Majin's head, and declares that Kinji is her food, and no one else can eat him. Rim explains that the Majin was incomplete, which is why it was seeking help. But then a hole opens up, and both Kinji and Rim fall into it, and Kinji remembers it as the same hole that brought him to this place.